This past weekend I raced Ironman Chattanooga, which turned into Iron Brick Chattanooga after they announced that they were going to have to cancel the swim on Thursday because of E. coli levels, flooding, and a really fast current in the Tennessee River. Heading into this race, I knew my fitness wasn't in a great spot, and that came through, especially in the last 20K of the run. So instead of taking you through a play-by-play of the race, I'm going to take you through what went well, what didn't go so well, and what lessons I've learned from moving forward. I think my nutrition worked really well. So on the bike, I used a lot more liquid nutrition and a lot less solids, namely Stroop waffles. So this is a change I made heading into the Esprit Half earlier this month, and I had a really great race there, so I wanted to test it out over a full Ironman distance. For the first half of the bike, I was using Gatorade that I'd added Carbo Pro to, and then for the second half of the bike, I was taking Gatorade from aid stations and using gels. I did have a couple of waffles over the course of the bike just to curb some of the hunger because it's not something that I got to test out a lot in training, but overall I didn't have any breathing issues when I got to the run, and I felt like my energy was relatively stable throughout the race. I was pretty happy with my pacing both on the bike and over the first half of the run. Because there was no swim, we had a TT style start. All the pros drew names and we started 1 minute apart from each other, so I drew the 10th spot at 8:09. From my experience at Ironman Louisville last year, where I was on a multi-loop course that was open to traffic, I knew that on the second loop of the course, I might run into some problems with navigating through the traffic and cars being out there, so I did want to have slightly higher power on my first loop when it was going to be a lot more open and clear than on the second loop, and that's what ended up happening. For my first loop, I was about 260 watts, and for my second loop, I was closer to 230 watts. Typically, on any Ironman bike, I go through a pretty major lull where it could be anywhere from 20 to about 40 kilometers. I just have really low energy, and my power really dips. And in this race, I did have about a 20 to 30 kilometer section where my power dropped down a little bit, but not as significantly as it has in the past. I feel like this improved pacing on the bike could go hand in hand with my changes in nutrition, but I also was trying to be really aware of where my power was at early on in the bike, because there are times where I can get a little bit excited in the first part of the ride and just go way too hard, and then I end up paying for that later on. So what didn't go so well? I feel like the mistakes that I made had less to do with my time in Chattanooga and more to do with the 6 months of training that I did leading into the race. So this year, I just didn't make it a priority to do those big, long training sessions that you really need to get done in order to make sure that you're well prepared for an Ironman. This year, I only did one training ride that was over 4.5 hours. I only did a couple that were over 4 hours, and I didn't do any of those really big mega days that I've done in the past, where I'll do a 4 to 5 hour bike and then a 1 to 2 hour run off the bike. I had a number of these types of workouts in my schedule, but it seemed like I always had some sort of excuse for why I wasn't able to get them done. I don't know if this year I just took for granted the fact that I would be able to get through an Ironman, or maybe it's because I didn't have a big, hairy, audacious goal like I've had in each of the past 3 years. Like in 2015, when I wanted to try and win my age group at Ironman Canada, at 2016 when I wanted to try and win the overall amateur race at Ironman Maryland, or 2017 when it was my first year racing as a pro and I just didn't want to embarrass myself. In an event as long and as grueling as an Ironman, you just don't achieve your goals by accident. And this year, my lack of commitment created a big gap between what my goals were and what my reality is. So I'm looking forward to taking a off-season break for the month of October, and I'll look forward to getting back at it and building up for a strong 2019 come November. So thanks a lot for checking out this week's video. If you like what you see, you can click the subscribe button down below. And until next time, happy training.
Oh, this you crazy mother.